people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News! Okay, we'll start with this. We now know a little bit more about who it is. Reigning WBA champion Jamie Mitchell is going to be facing in November, next month, before this year is out. Rumor has it she's going to be facing the United Kingdom's own unbeaten Nina Hughes. Per multiple sources, bantamweight world champion Jamie Mitchell will make the second defense of her WBA world championship against Essex's Commonwealth super bantamweight titleist Nina Hughes. Mitchell-Hughes will take place on the 26th of November. There's some conflicting information. This initial report seems to indicate that Mitchell versus Hughes is supposed to be a part of Dillian White's Ring Return. That show set to go down in the United Kingdom. But there are portions of this initial report that seem to indicate Mitchell versus Hughes will be happening abroad in Dubai in the UAE. So I'm not really sure how they're going to reconcile that. In any event, regardless of where the fight ends up happening, whether it happens in the United Kingdom or the United Arab Emirates, it's the fight itself we are here to address, getting a first look at Nina Hughes, who, by all accounts, looks to be facing Jamie Mitchell in the very near future. Nina Hughes, an unbeaten up-and-comer from Essex, sports a professional record of 4 wins, no losses, and no draws with 2 knockouts. She was in action earlier this month on the 15th against Flora Machella, journeywoman Flora Machella, who Nina stopped in 2 rounds. Nina won that fight by way of a technical knockout in the second round. Nina Hughes of Essex, she seems to pack a punch. She seems to be a decent-sized puncher, at least at this level she does. I'm going to assume that this is a voluntary title defense, just like the last one, like the Carly Thumper-Skelly fight from earlier this year in February. I'm going to assume that this is a voluntary title defense, not a mandatory title defense, and it's very smart of Jamie to get back out there at least one more time before this year is out to keep the machine well-oiled and the tools sharp ahead of what is to be a Shannon Courtenay rematch, presumably sometime next year, presumably if Shannon makes it through her next fight, her ring return set to go down in December on the undercard of Warrington versus Lopez. If Jamie makes it through this Nina Hughes fight and Shannon Courtenay wins her next fight, they're supposed to be settling up with each other for the second time at some point next year. Can Jamie make it through Nina Hughes? What do we need to know about Nina? Well, as stated, Nina Hughes sports a professional record of 4 wins, no losses, and no draws, 2 knockouts. An offensively minded fighter. Her offense seems to be her strength. She's not really big for the weight. She's not big for super bantamweight or bantamweight, where this contest is taking place. She's a bit pocket-sized. She's compact for a super bantamweight or a bantamweight, fights out of a wide stance, an orthodox fighter, an aggressive one that throws good straight punches, good straight shots from the outside coming in, though at times seems to compromise defense for offense whilst doing so. She does look vulnerable as she steps within striking distance, where her chin is. Nobody's really been able to exploit that fundamental flaw. Nobody's really been able to exploit it and capitalize on it so far. Nina Hughes is still very much in the early stages of her career. She only has 4 professional contests, so she's not really facing the level of opposition that would be able to exploit that. Offensively, she's very good. I like her variety of punches. I like her aggression, but defensively, she can be caught. So ahead of a fight with a more capable fighter than the fighters that she has been fighting, you want to be mindful of that Nina Hughes hasn't exactly had the opportunity to iron out all the kinks, round out as a fighter. Not yet. Jamie Mitchell will be the strongest fighter and the best boxer she's faced so far. She's been fighting journeywomen, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you expect this early in a fighter's career, but Jamie Mitchell, she's no journeywoman. That's the situation. This is a considerable step up in class for Nina because Jamie's no journeywoman, far from it. She's an unbeaten fighter, an unbeaten champion. Jamie and Nina, they're both a bit up there in age as far as unbeaten up-and-comers and unbeaten champions go. Jamie's about 37 years old. Nina's 40. Jamie sports professional record of 8 wins, no losses with 2 draws, 5 knockouts. And Nina's only 4-0. You kind of have to give Jamie Mitchell the edge here because she's got more pro experience than Nina, and she's been facing better, more experienced fighters than Nina has. You know, an impressive decision win over Shannon Courtenay, an even more impressive knockout over then unbeaten Carly Thumper Skelly in her last fight earlier this year. The danger for Nina is that in staying in character, she might get caught. That ahead of this fight, the same thing that makes her formidable is the same thing that makes her vulnerable. They both seem to be strong punchers, though I'd wager Jamie Mitchell not only punches harder, I think Jamie's a little faster than Nina, perhaps a little bigger, longer as well, and that will help her manage the distance whilst firing off counter shots safely against Nina, who... She's very aggressive. So far, Nina's been a very aggressive customer, and if she stays in character, that could definitely work against her against Jamie. It worked against Carly Thumper Skelly. What made her formidable against Amy Timlin is the same thing that got her knocked out against Jamie. That could happen to Nina. Definitely promises to be a good fight. I mean, I do get the sense that aesthetically, this is going to be a shootout. It's going to be a fan-friendly fight. All we can do now is wait for an official announcement.
For now, so yeah. And I was surprised that Crawford picked Venetian for his opponent next. I was hoping he gonna pick Vergil Ortiz next, but like, you know, he's picking, I don't know, like, I don't want to be, like, disrespectful to a Venetian, but I think he's picking easy fight, like, for Crawford.
Why do you say that? Why?
Because I don't think, like, it's not going to be a hard fight. Like, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be, like, very interesting fight. I will watch that fight. Like, Venetian, he's a good fighter. Yeah, like, he makes some good wins after I beat him, but I just don't believe that he's there to fight Crawford. I would love to see Crawford against Vergil Ortiz or Jaron Ennis, like those guys. But it is what it is. And champion picking who they want to fight next. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that.
Egis, for people who don't know a Venetian, when you fought him,
Egis Kavaliauskas is a common opponent between Terence Crawford and Vergil Ortiz. Egis feels that Terence is swerving a Vergil Ortiz fight. I can't say I agree with that contention because in order for you to swerve something or circumvent it, you can't sidestep somebody that isn't after you. And I got nothing against Vergil Ortiz, by the way. I think that kid's great. I think he's an excellent young boxer with one of the better resumes for an up-and-comer, for an unbeaten prospect, contender at this time. But, you know, looking at the situation for what it is, I don't get the sense that Vergil Ortiz was ever after Terence Crawford. I don't get the sense that that's the fight that Golden Boy Promotions wants for their fighter. I don't. Not but a month ago. Wasn't it last month? News broke that Vergil Ortiz was petitioning the WBA to allow him to fight a Montes Stanionis. I think oftentimes, boxing news being as fragmented as it is, the chronology of situations, the sequence, the actual sequence of events, it gets lost. That, you know, Terence Crawford has been in negotiations with these people since, what was it, June? Negotiations with the PBC for an Errol Spence Jr. fight that was supposed to go down this fall. That's been going on for months. More recently, the news we got is that Vergil Ortiz was eyeing a Montes Stanionis for a fight. A Montes Stanionis for a showdown. And we all know that a Montes Stanionis, that isn't a money fight. So why would he want to fight that guy? What's the virtue in that? Maybe a Montes Stanionis being in the queue for an Errol Spence Jr. fight. Maybe that's why Vergil is pursuing that fight, because he knows if he can get a Montes Stanionis in the ring and beat him, he becomes the mandatory challenger for unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. See, from where I'm sitting, Vergil Ortiz and his team and Golden Boy Promotions, they seem to be doing more to put Vergil in the ring with Errol. Where Egis Kavaliauskas might feel that Terence is avoiding Vergil, my honest opinion is he has nothing to avoid in Vergil because Vergil isn't after him. Terence Crawford has been a network and promotional free agent as of late last year, after the Sean Porter fight, and everybody knew that after that fight, he was all but done with Top Rank. So if what Golden Boy Promotions wanted for their fighter was a Terence Crawford fight, that was the time to do it. That was the time to strike, and they had plenty of time to make an offer to Terence Crawford for a Vergil Ortiz fight, because Terence Crawford was all but done with Top Rank and ESPN. He wasn't going to be working with them anymore. The Spence fight wasn't on the horizon. Not for Crawford, because the people at the PBC were working on Spence versus Hughes, their unification match. Everybody knew that, including the people at Golden Boy Promotions. So if what Golden Boy Promotions and Vergil Ortiz's handlers, if what they really wanted was a Terence Crawford fight. Remember that he was a network and promotional free agent, so if Golden Boy wanted him, that would have been the time to scoop him up. If what they wanted for their fighter was a title shot at Terence Crawford's WBO title, that would have been the time to strike. That would have been the time to make Terence Crawford an offer to bring him over, because everybody knew he wasn't going to fight Errol Spence Jr. next. Errol was looking to fight Yordenis Hughes. The onus would have been on Golden Boy Promotions to finance the fight, bankroll it, because Terence Crawford himself, he was a network and promotional free agent. And he was free. He didn't have anything on the horizon, anything other than waiting out the outcome of Hughes versus Spence to start negotiations with Errol. Essentially what I'm getting at is, no effort was made on Golden Boy Promotions' part to get that fight over the line, because that's not what they want for their fighter. Now, I don't think Vergil Ortiz is scared of Crawford, or scared of anybody, really. I'm just saying that's not the direction his handlers are taking him in. So how can Igis Kavaliauskas accuse Crawford of avoiding a guy who's not pursuing him, avoiding a fight? You say that Vergil Ortiz is ranked at number 1 by way of the WBO. But need I remind you what WBO President Paco Vergil said late last year, immediately after the Sean Porter fight? Sean Portier was Terence Crawford's mandatory challenger late last year, and that mandatory was satisfied. Paco Vergil followed up by saying that Terence wouldn't be due to satisfy another mandatory challenger 18 months from the date of the Porter fight. That's basically saying that Terence ain't got to satisfy another mandatory for the WBO until sometime around spring of next year. That basically rules out all of this year. Terence has no mandatories outstanding. Not that it matters, because neither Vergil Ortiz or Golden Boy Promotions are pursuing a fight with him. They're just not. So this narrative from Igis Kavaliauskas, a common opponent between them, this narrative that Terence is avoiding Vergil Ortiz, how could he be avoiding a fighter that isn't even pursuing him? Well, he's saying this because Terence is fighting David Avanesian instead of Vergil Ortiz or somebody like that. The word narrative oftentimes is an overused word in today's sport of boxing. You know, guys that are propagating narratives when sometimes it's not a narrative, it's just reality, it's just the truth. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. This is one of those times where it isn't. It's Igis Kavaliauskas' narrative that Terence is avoiding Vergil Ortiz. In all actuality, Vergil's not after him. He's not pursuing him. And if he's fighting David, it's because He's fighting David because he couldn't reach a deal with the PBC. He couldn't reach a deal to do the fight with Errol before this year was out. He's just keeping busy with David Avanesian. It's a keep busy fight in the interim, in the in-between time. That's all that is. It still seems to be his plan. Still seems to be his focus to get Errol Spence Jr. in the ring at some point early next year. I don't know whether he will or won't. I just know that's what he wants. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't agree with Igis. I can't agree with the Mean Machine. You can't avoid somebody that isn't after you. Because they're not after you, so what's to avoid? Finally, more details in association with the upcoming box office fight, the title fight, the super lightweight title fight between former champion Regis Prograis and world title challenger, seasoned veteran Jose Zepada. It appears that it will be shown on Fight TV at a price point of approximately $59.99, $60 if you round up. And that price point, it really surprised me, because I was expecting it to be... I am going to buy the fight, I am. But I was expecting a more moderate price point, because you have to remember, pay-per-views these days... There's a lot of instability in the market right now. There's a lot of instability due to piracy, oversaturation of the market, too many box office fights that really aren't box office worthy, fights like Ortiz versus Martin or Ortiz versus Ruiz. Very recently, a very well-known heavyweight in Deontay Wilder made his long-awaited, long-anticipated ring return. That was last weekend against Robert Helenius. And the box office figures for that fight, what numbers are being put out there, what numbers are floating around in the boxing cosmos, anywhere in between 50,000 to 77,000 pay-per-view buys.
Michael Woods, boxing scribe Michael Woods, via his own sources, says the number he was given was somewhere around 50,000.
Boxing insider Rick Glacier says the number he was given was somewhere around 77,000 buys for the fight. You have to remember that Deontay Wilder, for what it's worth, he's a more well-known fighter than either Jose Zepada or Regis Prograis. He's more well-known amongst casual boxing fans than these two guys are. And if his fight couldn't crack 100,000 buys,
what are the odds that these two boys will?
You might be asking yourself, well, if the market is that bad, why is this on pay-per-view? It's because Marv Nation placed the winning bid of $2.4 million. That's a pretty big bid for a fight like this. It's 2 times the amount of money that TGB Promotions, Tom Brown. They bid 2 times the amount that Tom Brown was willing to put up for this fight. $1.2 million. Marv Nation put up $2.4 million.
And we all know that TGB Promotions is just another way of saying PBC Promotions.
And we all know that, at least for the time being, the PBC has at least 2 network affiliates, 2 broadcast partners, Fox and Showtime. They actually have platforms where they could have shown the fight, whereas Marv Nation, what has mostly been a local outfit, small-time outfit, they ain't got no network deal, no broadcast partner, so why would they pay so much money to win the rights for this fight?
Fiscally, it's a very risky endeavor. $2.4 million.
Raw numbers. They'd have to sell 40,000 pay-per-view buys, roughly 40,000 pay-per-view buys just to generate $2.4 million. They'd likely have to sell well over that in order to generate an actual profit margin, an actual profit, get something out of all of this.
And those are raw figures, raw numbers. You'd have to sell 40,000 pay-per-view buys at a price point of $60 just to generate $2.4 million. That doesn't mean it covers everything, all of the operational costs.
There's an errant mystery to Marv Nation having won the purse bid the way that they did for that amount of money, because Marv Nation doesn't normally put on multi-million-dollar fights.
And they don't have a broadcast partner, a network affiliate that gives them an annual budget to put on shows like this. So where's the $2.4 million coming from?
And why stake $2.4 million to put on this show in the first place when commercially it may not even be worth $2.4 million? That's essentially saying that you can do the show and sell the tickets and put it out there. That doesn't mean this show brings you back $2.4 million. It's risky. Fiscally, it's very risky.
Put up that much money to win the rights for this thing. The only way you can hope to get the money back is if people buy the pay-per-view.
But are people going to buy the pay-per-view? Deontay Wilder was just on pay-per-view, and he's a more well-known guy than these guys. All he could generate was $77,000 at a price point of $80.
At a price point of $60, these guys are going to move upwards of 40,000 pay-per-view buys.
I feel like there's more going on here than meets the eye.
But in any event, I am going to buy the fight. I am.
Well, anyone else is the question.